your Drupal site personalized like Netflix by Pratik and Akanksha. So welcome. Thank you very much. You can start whenever you're ready.
Yep. Thank you, Prerna. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us at DrupalCon Europe. Really excited to be here to talk more about personalization. I know Ashley and Lara covered and talked a lot about it, and now we are going to deep dive into some of those things in this presentation. Uh, Moving on. So first, let's just set the quick agenda. So we are going to just quickly talk about us, quickly introduce ourselves and about Accelerant. This is where we work, and talk about the role of personalization in the digital experience strategy, and then deep dive into some of the use cases around Netflix personalization and how we can do that within Drupal. We also support it with the help of a case study. And lastly, we'll talk about things to keep in mind while defining your personalization strategy or while doing it. And there's so that's the agenda. So yeah, this is hello from Excellent. I mean, we are a digital experience organization. I mean, a globally distributed organization based out of India and 6 other global time zones. And this photograph is from our last physical retreat that happened February last year. I mean, you can find me and Akansha in this pic as well. Then the next slide is quickly introducing myself about, I'm Pratik Jain. I'm director and leading the consulting services in Excellent. My role is to kind of work towards our pre-sales engineering and the consulting aspects around all our services. Here it is, Akansha.
Hi, I'm Akanksha. I'm a Drupal engineer with Accelerant, and I've been working on personalization for almost a year now. You can usually find me on Twitter. I think that's the best place to find me. And today we'll be talking about how we develop personalization for Netflix, something like Netflix and Drupal. Over to you, Pratik.
Yeah. So firstly, I mean, we are going to talk about some of the key trends of the digital engagement. Firstly, companies are today, or organizations are being challenged to foster real-time conversation or a two-way dialogue with the customers. And 71% of the customer expect companies to kind of interact with them in a real time. And this is one of the key trend of digital engagement in this era. Secondly, nearly 80% of the customer expect consistency when interacting across multiple departments, or in short, effective engagement also needs to be connected across different platforms, be it mobile app, be it website, or be it an offline campaign as well. And lastly, which is where we are going to deep dive today, is about the personalization. And most customers now today expect companies to provide a personalized experience based on their needs and expectation. Personalization has already been recognized by marketeers for a long time now, and they are seeing the impact across different customer journeys. Customers today want a tailored experience as they progress from hearing first about the company, then to buying your product, and then through the entire customer journey. For example, I mean, if someone is seeing an ad on your website or on the side of a bus, right, all the way through to clicking a buy button on your e-commerce website. They also want these tailored experience coupled with the engagement from customer services. And therefore, the personalization is really, really important in this new digital era. Moving on, these tailored and personalized experience not only help with the engagement of the users, they also help gain the insights into the customer preferences and their intent through the data. And Lara and Ashley talked some of these things in the last presentation a few minutes back. So today we are going to talk about the Netflix and personalization, and we are going to deep dive and see some of the use cases that exist. Before we kind of deep dive into those use cases as well, I'm going to talk about like what's really different about Netflix personalization. And they do a lot in terms of personalizing, be it a content based on what their recommendation is, be it as an email or what you see on the website, and even what images that you see, what banners you see about a particular title, and in anything, your pattern around the time you're watching, the genre you're watching, and they collect a lot of data and then personalize and create a personalized experience for the end users. And we are going to see some of those use cases today. And the first use case that we are going to talk about today is about creating personalized recommendation. And Akansha is going to talk and deep dive into this scenario more.
Hello, thank you, Pratik. So personalized recommendations. I'm sure all of you watch Netflix. So what Netflix does is that the page structure, entire page structure is personalized. which means that when you open Netflix, whatever rows you see are different for every user. And this is what personalized recommendations, this is what happens when we talk about personalized recommendations. So almost 75 to 80% of everything that is watched on Netflix comes from recommendations. Netflix has so much content that it would be impossible for anyone to go through the entire thing. If you think back to the last 3 shows that you watched, I'm sure at least one of them would have been recommended by Netflix. So how do they make you watch these shows? So it's pretty, Netflix has a lot of shows, and then they apply a bunch of algorithms on these shows and filter them out. And then they structure it in the page in such a way that you see the shows that are most relevant to you. So for example, if I watch a lot of horror movies, so the next time when I open Netflix, the top bar would say, more in horror, or continue watching. What you would like, it would have more horror, and then related things to horror, like thriller or horror with a certain, like sci-fi. So first you need what to show to the user, and then you have to figure out how to show it to the user. All right, so we did this, and we'll come back to this, how we did it in Drupal, but there's another use case that I would like to discuss before that, which is personalized artworks. So Netflix has figured out that these are the genres that you love, and Netflix is going to show you those genres in particular rows. Now, how does it make you click on that particular one show? To do that, they've come up with this thing called personalized art, which means that one show can have 6 different posters. Let's say one show has 6 different posters. And based on what you like, you will see a poster that you like. So the example that I'm taking here is of Avengers Endgame. So let's say that you're a big Captain America fan, or you like Chris Evans. So if you open Netflix, you will see a poster that shows Chris Evans when you see the Endgame, when you go to the Endgame movie, or when you see recommendations. So Netflix is showing all of this based on what you like, your preferences, and the most relevant content. This is what it looks like. So if I'm a Captain America fan, this is the poster I see. And if I'm an Iron Man fan, this is the poster that I see. Now, let's see how we can do this in Drupal. So we did a quick example in Drupal. You just heard a lot about smart content paragraphs. So I have implemented this using smart content blocks. And let's check this out. So this is for the recommendation block, the block that you see on the right. And if you see, so it shows what you might like. Now, for now, it is showing horror because I've set that as the default. But if I go and see, I see 2 movies, and say I go for Guardians of the Galaxy, and this is tagged as comedy. So based on this tag, my recommendation would change. So now the user knows that I like comedy. If I go back to the home page, you see the recommendation block has changed. Now it has become comedy. So, and then the second example is a banner, which you saw in the earlier presentation also. So let's see. You see the banner. The banner is a generic banner of all superheroes together. But if I visit a page that, say, a Captain America page, so yeah, characters, Captain America. And whenever I see this page, so now you know that I fall into the segment of people who like Captain America. Now, if I go back to the home page and I view this page again, I will see that the banner has changed. There you go. So now I see the Captain America banner. So I'd be, more inclined to click on this movie and watch it if I think it has something to do with Captain America or the actor that I like. And that is how Netflix does this. Moving on, let's. All right, so how can we do this? There are 3 things that are the most important things when we talk about personalization. The first one is segment. Now, what is segment? Segment is a category of users based on their interest or any other criteria used to classify them. The most important part about personalization, as you've already heard, is data collection. So the more data that you have, better your personalization would be. And I can understand it's very hard to get a lot of consolidated data about a customer, but then some things can be done easily. For example, geolocation. If someone from a whole country visits your website and you have, say, a product website, if you know that they are from a cold country, you could show them winter clothing. You can, it'll be a safe bet to say that, they would be interested more in that. And that is more relevant to the customer. So they'd be interested in visiting your site again. So this is what a segment is. In the example that we just discussed, the segments would be people who like Captain America, people who like Iron Man, say people who like Wonder Woman. And based on those segments, they will be shown the relevant content. The second part is slots. Slots are places on your website where this dynamic content appears. So in our example, it could be the recommendation block on the right, which kept on changing according to what genre you would like, or the banner, again, which keeps on changing according to what segment visits it. So slot is nothing but a place, but to fill the content in the slots, you need lots of tagged content. And that is probably the crux of, Drupal, like how personalization works with Drupal. So you need content that is tagged with every particular, so that it can be mapped to the correct user. And I think this is very easy to do in Drupal since we have taxonomy. So you can tag everything and then you can display it to the correct user. I mean, the way Netflix does it, Netflix has people who manually go and tag each show with every single subcategory they could think of. So, I mean, I see shows that say, strong female lead. And so that has to be tagged before it can be shown to the user. And the final step is personalizing. So a user visits your site, you recognize that they belong to this segment, and then you show them the correct content. I know all of this sounds a lot of work, but then we have a lot of contrib modules which we can use to do this. What I have used in my example is smart content. So there are lots of other use cases that can also be implemented, which, for example, personalized search results. So you have a lot of content on your site and a user searches for something. You would want to show them the results that are most relevant to them. And this can happen. I mean, when you get the results, you can sort them based on relevance. Personalized menus or personalized notifications, all of this can be implemented. So there are a bunch of contrib modules that can be used to do this. Personalization. This is available only for Drupal 7. So if you want to personalize your website, which is on Drupal 7, then this is a module you should go for. Smart content and Aqualift are available for Drupal 8. Smart content is a free to use module. And even though it cannot handle very complex use cases, it works amazingly well for small use cases like the ones that we just discussed. So it's mostly out of the box. There's very little code that you have to write. Aqualift is enterprise solution, obviously. So if you need complex use cases, if you need consolidated customer data across all networks, then Aqualift is the solution you should go for. This is a quick comparison of modules. I'm going to skip this because we don't have a lot of time, but just different modules and what they should be used for. There are more modules that can be used. These are the ones that I've personally explored. I have also looked into Unomi, which is based on Apache's Unomi. And it looks quite promising as it's open source, and it is almost as powerful as the other enterprise level solutions available right now. All right, so we did all of this and then we put it to use. So we created a personalized debt collection system with Wildstyle. So Wildstyle is a German agency. And this debt collection system, so users come and pay off their debts here. So debts could be from different companies. What we did was we built a custom personalization engine. So this has a drag and drop functionality where you can drag and drop and create various conditions, complicated conditions. And finally, you can divide users into segments. Also, like we saw in the personalized artwork example, we have personalized content here. So for every user, they're greeted by name. Based on their spending habits, they see offers related to that. Then, what they might like. Then we also have A and B tests to determine whether the personalization is actually working or not. So you find out what a user actually likes. We have ads of services which appear throughout the site, and then users can rate them on a scale of 1 to 5. And based on that, we realize which users like which ads, what they would like to see more of. And finally, a personalized payment sequence. I mean, this you see wherever you make a payment. If you go to PayPal and make a payment, you'll see that your favorite payment methods would be at the top. This is amazing because it gives less time for the users to get frustrated and leave your site before making an actual payment. All right, so this is the persona builder, the personalization engine that we built. It has drag and drop functionality. You can create multiple conditions here and finally a result. So there's an API exposed. Drupal sends a request to this. And then based on these conditions, a persona is resolved. We recognize that, this user spends a lot. This user is a conservative spender. And then we return that to Drupal. The architecture looks roughly like this. There's Drupal. There's progressively decoupled React frontend, and there's a personalization engine in the back. So in React frontend, we have lots of slots where the personalized data appears. React sends a request to Drupal, which sends a request to persona engine, where we get the persona from. We send all the customer data, for example, their outstanding debt, last payment made, whether they have installments running. And then based on that, we get the user's persona. And then we decide which content to show. So we have multiple paragraphs with different content for each persona. And then we return that persona, that content to React where it is displayed. I'll hand it over to Prateek for the rest.
Yep. Thank you, Akansha. So just to recap, right, we saw some of the scenarios, how these personalization techniques of Netflix personalization can be implemented within Drupal and how we did it for the wild style. Some of the things that we also did as a part of that particular project was to create a personalized chatbot. So the same data that gets that's become the part of this personalization strategy can be used to build and expose, and that can be exposed, and then things like chatbots can be made as well. These are some of the things that we should keep in mind while doing the personalization. The first is start with minimal. I mean, in our experience, we have seen that, big personalization strategies takes a lot of time to implement, and then by the time you learn and then understand and then figure out the value of that, it's too late. So our suggestion is to start with minimal, start with a simple block on a homepage, for example, or a couple of other scenarios, and see how it's working. Start with mapping the customer journey. Personalization is not just a tool, just you can embed it on any page and then without thinking about the entire customer journey. Akansha talked about the wild style case study where the user can come and then talk and pay their debts. It's important to understand what places they kind of fall out and then personalize the entire payment experience accordingly. Also, the content strategy. I think we also talked about the taxonomies and tagging the content and the Netflix scenario where there's a lot of content and then you need to tag it with the right tags and place it in the right appropriate slots. It's important to tie up your personalization within your entire content strategy. Otherwise, if your personas are such that your content doesn't tie up with it, it may not be that useful. And fourth one, which it's one of the most important one, is like keep it useful and not creepy. Do not overdo. The idea is to not to overdo the personalization and make it sound like creepy by providing and then tracking each and everything, and which also kind of ties up into the data privacy and the GDPR issue. Notify things like notify visitors about before tracking cookies, only collect what you need, and give option for people to opt out of these personalizations and the data collection features that you have. And some of the modules that we have seen, the smart content, smart paragraphs was talked about earlier, personalization, Acquia Lift. There are a lot of technologies that exist. And for some of these simple scenarios, most the contrib module is more than enough at times, unless you are really creating a really big strategy where you need things like CDPs and others. And even over there, right? When you tie up with Apache, you can get and then build your entire personalization just by using the open source technologies as well. At the same time, for analytics, things like, as simple as Google Analytics at times will tell you how your personalization is working. And even in the proprietary tools like Acquia Lift, there is a more around it, which tells you like how the Acquia Lift is happening. And then lastly, have a cross-functional team who understands this personalization and personalization strategy overall. and who can then test, learn, and then iterate quickly and then evolve from there. So with that said, we are done with our presentation, and then we are open up for any questions. I can see there are a few questions already, and Akansha, would you like to take this one where it says that can you explain sentiment analysis as a means to categorize user? I mean, how do you categorize users based on sentiment analysis?
Sure, yeah, I can take that. So sentiment analysis can be used to categorize user as in based on, the kind of content they interact with. It is a whole holistic, the entire customer journey throughout. So the tone of the content that they are more into, for example, I mean, I'll give Facebook's example. So if I scroll through it, the kind of posts that I see would be geared towards, say, related to reading or happy posts or like, say, inspirational posts. And they know exactly what kind would speak to me and they display that. So you can tie it up and you can find out exactly what segment. So there are a number of ways to divide users into segments, and that could be one of those ways.
Yeah. So one other question is that does any of the contributed module available support segmentation based on the number of times a user is viewing a particular content?
So you have to write a little bit of custom code for that, but smart content does have the functionality. I mean, I just checked it and there's a cookie set number of pages visited, but I think it's not for a particular page. The example that I showed, so I wrote a little bit of custom code to kind of see what taxonomy term is tagged in the node and then set a cookie with that. So it's a little bit of custom code, but it can be done.
Yeah, in addition to it, right, I mean, you can always use like something like tie it up with Mautic and have a point system for the user. So every time a user visits a particular content or a particular action, you can increase the points, and then based on those point system, you can create those segments. So I mean, the smart content module does provide those flexibility in terms of personalizing based on a flexible or rather custom fields as well. I think we have a couple of more minutes. I think we can take a few more questions. One of the questions is that what if there are too many use cases? User has been to a variety of the content, then how would that affect the recommendation part? Okay, I think I cannot see that question any longer, but I think the idea was that if you have too many questions, where would that go? I mean, if a user kind of goes to a different content, let's say goes to a Captain America or an Iron Man and then too many pages, how will you determine the user persona? I think that was the question. For some reason, I cannot see it anymore. Akansha, would you like to answer that?
Which question are you talking about?
Yeah, I think it's this one. What if there are too many use cases? I think, yeah, I can see it now. User has been to a variety of content. Then how would that affect? That's correct.
Yeah, so recommend contents to users.
I'm really sorry, but this is going to end very soon. So maybe there are a few questions, pretty interesting questions that can reach out to you. Are you going to be online during the rest of the event?
Yeah, so
yeah, absolutely.
The questions and we'll answer them on Twitter. I mean,
really sorry, it was very interesting, but it's going to end very soon. Thank you very much for your presentation. And yes, so any further questions, you can reach out to them later today.
Thank you for attending, and we'll be answering the questions on Twitter for sure. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.